This is the Misdirected Mark Podcast, a podcast about gaming, game mastering, and entertaining you, our listeners. We are explicit, you have been warned, and I'd like to thank Mike Willard for letting us use his music on our show. Now let's pick up those mics and get on with this thing.
All right, Montages, I think we've got a plan. I love a good heist.
That's right. We involve amongst the rest of the crew. We might just pull this off.
All right, now, all you guys got to do now is, do all the prep stuff.
There's a lot to do, though. It's going to take a lot of time in game.
Yeah, but we don't need to detail it all.
Yeah, exactly. You know what that means. It's time to do the thing.
I love the thing.
The thing!
Well, when you have to show a lot of progress and action in a short time, then you have to do a... Montage!
And a 1, and a 2, and when you have...
We are not going to sing.
It's a montage. I have a song and everything.
No singing.
You have a montage song? Maybe in the after show. Maybe we'll hear it in the after show.
And with that, welcome to the 43rd episode of the Misdirected Mark Podcast. Tonight, we discuss using montages in your game, both narratively and mechanically. And along the way, we'll take your suggestions, examples, and questions live to the chat room for life. But first, my name is Jerry.
My name is Phil.
And I am Old Man Logan. Good evening. Welcome. Let us slide on into the foyer here as we do our temperature check. See how everybody's doing. Phil?
We were so close to getting rid of the temperature check. And then this Delta thing has come back, and it's like, well, I guess we still need to talk about this. So the temperature check remains for now. We were almost there, people. Yep. Almost there. So anyway, I am okay. I am physically fine. A little tired. I'll talk about that. I'll talk about that when we get into the one thing. And I'm emotionally a little adrift right now. I don't want to talk about it too much for the temperature check, but I've got a therapy session tomorrow, and I'm like, phew, thank goodness. I'll put it to good use. So I'm okay. We'll talk a little bit more in the after show and stuff.
Okay.
Jer, how about you?
Pretty good. In the middle of training right now, and this is end of the last month, beginning of the first month, so it's busy at work, but overall pretty good. Had a nice relaxing weekend. I'm hoping to get a day off one of these days and kind of relax, and then just kind of chill at home. So, not bad.
Nice. Bobo?
Cool. I physically dealing with a little bit of a reflux problem, which is annoying as hell. And I think it's because of the meds, because of the infection that I got in my leg, but that's all mostly gone, and the meds are almost done, so things should be leveling out. Mentally, I'm starting to fray a little bit because I am slowly working my way into absolute chaos because my closing dates are coming up, and I'm still in the process of cleaning, purging, and packing, and then there's going to be moving things and buying stuff, furniture and things, and just controlled chaos. Hopefully controlled. But chaos. Did you call my moving guys? I did not. I'm going to check with them tomorrow.
Okay, you should call those guys.
Yeah, I wanted to make sure that I had a fairly solid closing date before I said, hey, let's set something, because I didn't want to be like, all right, we're going to go here, and then the closing date gets bumped, and I got to go back to them and go, hey, we need to move. Well, now we're all booked up for, I wanted to get it a little tighter before I called them. So yeah, that'll be a thing. I had a flurry of stuff today while I was trying to do work, so I was all like, there's a lot going on.
No, it's a lot. I went the better part of a month every day.
Yeah.
Packing and moving stuff over here. Yep. It was a lot, man. I get it. It's a lot, and you don't have access to the other place yet.
Not yet.
I was packing some stuff. I was unpacking and just bringing the boxes back and reusing them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Luckily, though, much like you, I will have access to both places at the same time for at least a couple of weeks, probably 3.
That's you can do a lot of good with that.
Yes, so that is going to help things out tremendously. So, all right.
So when I moved from Auburn, I didn't have that option. I had to move.
Oh yeah, when you
had to move out of the house. I had to buy or rent a storage unit, move everything out of the house, and then it was about 4 months before maybe 5 months before I found some place to move in. Another 4 before I moved in. So
that adds a whole nother layer of complexity to the problem.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely does.
All right, so that all being said, yeah, my one thing is the closings are coming. The closings are coming. It's like I have
ABC, always be closing.
Always be closing,
yes.
Exactly. I my house closing to sell is this coming Monday. So the next show we do, that closing will be over.
Hey.
And
so
then,
we should talk offline. We don't have to talk here. We should talk offline if you want a week or something, like where we don't do the show, so that like your big move week or whatever, or the just after your move, like you get some downtime. Like it helped when I did it. That is
definitely going to be a conversation. It looks like it's going to be like probably Labor Day week. Is when I'm going to be taking off of work. So that would probably be a good one to just take off. It's a holiday.
Okay.
So we'll talk about it.
We'll talk about it offline, but you should definitely definitely don't He-Man your way through.
Yeah, trust me. If there's one thing I know, it's how not to He-Man. Ask Jerry about all of Valheim I've been playing instead of packing. But it is what it is. So yeah, that's my thing. I'm using Valheim to keep myself stable, but lots of stuff going on, and everything's ramping up now. Luckily, the project at work that has been lingering is it going to happen all at the same time? Looks like it's going to be September before it really does anything. So I should be able to get through this move before work really starts to get intense. So that's me, Jerry. What's your one thing?
One thing this week, we got to play iHunt this weekend. I've never played it before, and Phil hosted an off week game of iHunt with Glenn and Chris and myself, which is an amazing Fate game. It takes all the things that are interesting about Fate and adds a few other fun little topics in, and the game went really smooth. I was a latecomer to the Fate bandwagon. I'm really enjoying what I've seen with Dresden and now with this one. The game was good. The character generation was fun. The rules worked well. And there's another game that the additional minor mechanics of the game play into the genre and create. How do I put this? It's where the genre and the game seem to meld really well together.
Yeah.
The mechanics don't seem to get in the way of the game, and the additional mechanics allow you to easily mechanize a few things that just make the game more fun.
Yeah, often call that the mechanics are enforcing the genre.
Yep.
Thank you. That's the term I'm looking for. Perfect. All right. That's pretty much
Bob, I will tell you really quick from the iHunt game, the two guys. So Chris and Jerry's characters arrive right there from New Jersey, and they're like, "Yeah, we got this contract. We're hunting a werewolf. Apparently, he's like the trainer at a gym." And Glenn's like, CrossFit gym? And they're like, yeah, how did you know? And he's like, yeah. He's like, Jersey werewolves love CrossFit.
Yeah. We took care of that, didn't we?
No, remember the alpha got away.
Oh.
Okay. Yeah. There was a lot of interesting things that were involved, but just a lot of fun.
It was good. It was a good one-off session, which actually inspires next week's show topic, which is going to be having guests in your ongoing game. So we're going to talk about that next week.
Plus, now Glenn has 3 more contacts actually. So
I guess I'm up next, right?
Yeah.
I'm up. Mine is less awesome. My one thing is I got recalled back to the office, and bleh is. In fact, my exact words were when I saw the email, I looked at it, I read it, and I was like, mediocre. So I went back Monday, and yep, everything about the office sucks, compared to working from home. I managed to put my desk back together, and I got everything cleaned up and cabled, and I got like back to work kind of stuff, but like I hate my office chair. I hate the fact that I can't like switch up like here if I'm working and and I get like my back gets a little sore from sitting in the chair, like I'll just get up and like stretch out on like the day bed behind me or on my bed and just like, take out my phone, open up Outlook and like, clear mail or whatever. Like there's none of that. And then on top of it, right, like Delta hasn't gone away, and our sister school, the University of Buffalo, just reissued masks for all people indoors. Right now we're on the you only have to mask if you're not vaccinated. You're fine. Like if you're vaccinated, you can go without. But like if I have to mask and sit at my desk for 8 hours, like I do not see any point about why I need to be in the office. Like I'm not down with this in any way, shape, or form. Like I was actually a little depressed today coming out of work because I was like, this sucks. And if I didn't have the benefits I have for that job, I honestly would be like working on a resume today. Like I would just be like, I got to project management. Like I got to do project management shit from home. Like this sucks. So it sucks. And hopefully this Delta thing will just force us all back out of the office. That's what I'm hoping at this point. But whatever, it's stupid. And I'm there because I need to be there, because not even my bosses wanted to go back. Their bosses made everybody go back. So I can't even be mad at anyone in the office. We're all just like annoyed.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving on to our announcements. We have two. I'll do the first one. Tonight, which is August 3rd. Tonight is our final episode of our Voyager Watch Party. We wrap up the Voyager TV series with the 2-part end game episode. At this point, so if you're listening to this and it dropped a week later, you cannot join us. If you're on the chat tonight and you want to join us for the watch party, look in the forum, look in the Slack room and whatever, where the normal places where we put our links. I'm excited, right? Like throughout the pandemic, we went through TNG, we went through DS9, we've gone through Voyager. We took some people who knew nothing about Star Trek, and we have made them into Trekkies. Like I'm very happy that like we have like commissioned a new group of Trekkies.
Yep.
So that's very cool. At this point, we do not have any immediate plans for a future watch party. People have asked if I would be willing to do the Enterprise watch party at some point in the future, maybe, but Enterprise is tough because
it's a hard one.
It's a hard one because it's hard to skip around the third season. And you either end, and honestly, it has the worst ending of a Star Trek series ever. It is brutal. There's just not enough. I don't know if there's enough to say, like, I don't know if there's enough to make it worth it. I know that you have been looking at the idea of doing a TOS, which I actually think would be really cool, because a curated list of TOS episodes could actually be a lot of not only fun, but there's actually some really good TOS episodes that people might not be aware of. You just, have to get used to the fact it was shot in the 60s. But
if we do TOS, we got to do Rathacon.
Oh yeah, we could do TOS and then watch Rathacon on a show night as well. Like that would be fine.
Absolutely.
I mean, Rathacon is like, that's my all-time
best Trek movie,
favorite Star Trek movie.
So we will,
and it's probably one of my top 5 party. Movies. What's that?
We will ponder another watch party somewhere down the road, but we're going to take a break after Voyager, and we'll circle back at some point.
Also, it'd be hard to do like a disco watch party because you just got to watch the whole fucking thing.
Yes.
Actually,
I mean, like the disco watch party is watch disco.
Yeah.
Actually, if we're going to do if you don't think we can do if we just want to do a one-off someday, we can do Galaxy Quest.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's funny.
Yeah, because Galaxy Quest plays with a lot of the tropes.
Yeah. Anyway, that's my announcement. Bob, what's your announcement?
Announcement number 2, the forum contest is finally over. We let it get away from us. We resurrected it. We finished it off. We have 2 winners. We had announced that we were going to give away a Bag Thulu dice bag from Wayward Masquerade. and a She's a Super Geek bag crafted by our queen herself, Senda. The winners are, and we're going to announce them here, and then we're going to reach out to them through the forums to let them know that they've won there and arrange for fulfillment. The winner of the Bag Thulu dice bag is our forum member, Chuck.
Bravo, Chuck,
congratulations. As I said, we'll reach out to you through the forums. And the winner of the She's a Super Geek bag, the old school DM himself, Randy Farmer.
Hey!
Congratulations to both. And again, we'll reach out to you and get the ball rolling on how we're going to fulfill that for you. All right. That is the contest fulfilled. Next time we have a contest, we'll have more control over it.
Next time we have a contest, we'll slap an end date on that thing.
And we won't, lose it in a pandemic, I hope.
Well, I think we get some special dispensation.
Yeah, I think we get a little bump for that, though.
Yeah.
Okay, so that brings us to the feature segment, which tonight is actually a garage for the first time in a while. So I think I have the right code.
Access granted.
There we go. It's been a while. Sometimes you
there
forget.
We go. Very
What's my
nice.
password? 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I got to change my code again.
It changed the combinations of my luggage.
All right. So tonight, we kind of came to this the way that we come to a lot of our topics, which is our kind of throw the spaghetti at the wall method. And sometimes we get some really interesting results. And luckily, we all agreed on one of my favorite tropes, which is the montage. So tonight we're going to look at montage. And even though we're not sure if it's going to be a garage or a workshop, ultimately it's going to end up being a garage. And we're going to look at montages from the mechanical perspective. But throughout the episode, we'll also talk about narrative ones as well.
Sorry. In order to get started, we need to talk about what a montage is and how it works mechanically. So let me do this for Phil here, because we love to do this.
Behold! You are in the presence of Definition Panda.
Yeah, so this is like kind of our definitions, right? For the garage segment, we always talk about like how they work. And I do have to kind of set up a little bit of a definition to get us started, right? So we do need to talk about the word montage, which is defined as the process or technique of selecting, editing, and piecing together separate sections of film to form a continuous whole, which doesn't really sound like much. So it's better probably just to go by example. Montages are like completely ubiquitous in movies. They appear all over the place. And without a doubt, you have seen one in any number of places. Jerry, roll off a couple of them.
Well, first of all, we have hackers, where the kids are preparing to hack the Ellison Gibson at the end. In any of the Fast and Furious movies, you get them prepping their cars for the big finale. In Dirty Dancing, there's a montage of the whole crew preparing for the big performance. And, of course, in Predator, you've got Dutch preparing for the final confrontation with the Predator by, making traps and hauling up the big rock and covering himself with gooey mud and all that stuff. So those are all different montages during a long period of time condensed down.
Yeah, I mean, we could sit around for another like 10 minutes and name other movies of montages. You've seen montages, people. You know what they are. Okay. Mm-hmm. In movies, as we will see in role-playing games, the montage is often used to show preparation for something. Mm-hmm. We'll talk about a couple different variants in a second. Montages can be performed by one person who is like doing different activities, right? We see the montage of the same person, but they're, prepping this, then they're prepping that, then they're prepping this. Or we can see a group of people each doing their own thing, and the combination of all the things they're doing forms the montage. And there are three, I'm not going to say they're the only three, but there are three common montage structures, especially when we talk about movies and gaming. The first one I like to call is the skill prep, right? Skill/prep. This montage is where the goal of the montage is something like a heist or a job, and the montage is like the preparation, right? So it could be like a heist, a job. It could be like a fight or another kind of conflict, right? In Dirty Dancing, the big performance at the talent show is the conflict, so to speak. So the skill prep is like preparation to get a job done. although now that I say that with Dirty Dancing, the Dirty Dancing one actually belongs in the second category, which is the training prep. This is the montage where the goal is for the character to train as a way to learn something new, right? We use the training montage to compress a whole bunch of learning into something that we can kind of visibly see, right? So that's for sure, that's a thing, the training montage. There's also a narrative montage, right? This is a montage that's kind of used to move the narration of a game along, by each character contributing a small snippet of their actions. And then Avi, who's in our chat room, just talked about montages for overland travel. Travel montage might be another form, a fourth form of montage that one could use. In fact, we're actually going to name a game in our list of games in a moment that actually does use a travel montage. So thanks, Avi.
Yay. Since RPGs often work to emulate movies, there must be some games that have montages that perform mechanical purposes. So, as we just said, Jerry, run us through some of those games.
All right. Well, first of all, we were worried about coming up with enough examples, but after just a few seconds of thinking about it, we came up with a huge list of examples. So, Phil, give us our first one.
Yeah, turns out this was easier than I thought. The first one I'm going to go with is one of my favorites. Although some people will grumble, but shut up. Is the D&D 4e skill challenge.
Yep,
is absolutely a form of montage. It is a skill prep montage. Its purpose is to achieve something that requires more than one skill check, but to condense it into like one activity rather than like playing out like turn to turn all the actions. Like for instance, escaping from a city jail. Like you could role play that all out, or if the more important thing is to do something after being in jail, you can crush this thing down to a skill challenge and be like, cool, let's just do a skill challenge about how you get out of this jail. The mechanics for it, I'm not going to go into super deep depth, but each person in the group kind of determines the skill they want to contribute to the challenge. The DM kind of makes sure that the skill lines up with what you're doing. Everybody makes a check. The goal is to get a certain number of successes before getting a certain number of failures. So as long as you get enough successes over the threshold, your action is successful. The skill check is successful. If you don't, then you fail.
You know what? Why 4E might not have been everybody's favorite edition. That was an excellent mechanic that I think has been adapted and used in a lot of other game systems, and is one of the easiest to add to your game if you don't have one.
Yeah, I 100% agree that in terms of montage things to rip off, that format is the easiest thing to rip off. And I will also say that while we all in the moment, so my feelings about 4E are the same feelings I had about Voyager. When I first played it, I had some very strong feelings about it, but now that time's passed, I can look back on it and recognize there was a lot of stuff in 4E that I really liked.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Jerry, pick another game.
All right, and I might need a little bit of help from the chat room on this. Our Traveling Home. This is a narrative montage, and the purpose is generally to fix or upgrade the home as we go. And the mechanics of it are going to be a mini game scene. There's a series of task prompts that each player picks from to describe a moment in the montage, and that gives you an overall level of success determined by the cumulative successes of the combined pieces as you go. So the more success you have and how they accumulate gives you more of a story to go on.
Sweet. Cool. Perfect. Mm-hmm. Next up, Damn the Man, Save the Music, the epilogue. And I think actually the opening does the same thing. It is a narrative montage. In the epilogue, each character has 2 brief scenes to kind of wrap up their stories. You just kind of describe them in a narrative fashion. There's no real hard mechanics for this. You don't make rolls or anything, but the procedure of the game, right? So the procedure that how you play the game dictates that you have 2 brief scenes and to kind of put them together in this montage.
Mm-hmm. All right, the next one is Hong Kong Action Theater, and this is a training montage. And the purpose is to unlock a special move that you get to use on the bad guys. And the mechanics of this is the players are going to narrate the montage. And that narration will determine how they access the move based on the story they tell and how they talk about getting the ability and overcoming the training.
I mean, it's so for Hong Kong action theater, it is so unbelievably on genre to require the training montage to get your cool power. Let's talk about Fate. Fate has a montage mechanic, which is the challenge. It is a skill prep montage. It is its purpose is when you have a goal that requires a combination of several skill checks that you want to kind of pack them all together, and that like all the skill checks build on each other. Mm-hmm. They give a really good example in the book of like trying to stop zombies from breaking into an inn, and they give you like 3 things that the characters have to do to make sure that the zombies don't get into the inn, if my memory serves correctly from the original Fate rules. But anyway, the mechanics are pretty easy. You define 3 skills, you set the difficulties, everybody makes skill checks, and then the GM kind of interprets the successes, the failures, and any failures that had, or any successes that had costs to kind of come up with the final outcome.
Yep. The next one we're going to talk about is a game called Love and Justice. And in Love and Justice, we have the closing of the episode. This is a narrative montage, and the whole purpose of Love and Justice, the montage, is to determine how the end of the episode goes. Is it a high note or low note? And that's determined by the dice that you've accumulated while playing the game. Every time you do a task, you can end up accumulating dice, and low dice, which are 1 to 3, end up being unexpected or negative consequences, and the high dice are going to be positive outcomes. And you're going to combine them. So you might have a couple of high points and a couple of low points or unexpected points. And all of that will give you how the end of the episode goes. Whether people end up in kind of a happy note or in a cliffhanger or in some situation where they accomplished a goal but something else occurred, like we stopped the bad guy but they kidnapped our cat, that sort of thing. It's a really easy way to do a nice narrative ending that kind of combines all the stuff that happened in the game into one story.
Yep. Absolutely. Let's see. Next up, Feng Shui. The training montage is a training montage where you learn a new skill. So in the game, if you want to learn a new skill, you have to first you have to have like whatever the experience point currency is to pay for it, but then you have to describe to the GM a montage of how you are learning that new skill, which I think is again pretty awesome.
The next one is from the Dungeon World pack called Perilous Journeys. And this montage is a travel montage. We talked about looking at it earlier. And this is a move that we use when traveling from one location to the other. And the mechanic of this is that this move requires 3 different characters to take on roles for things like scouting and prepping and camping and so on. And each makes their own role. And then the outcomes give you a montage that determines how the journey goes. Not only did we go from point A to point B, but how long did it take? Did we suffer any mishaps? And the characters can briefly narrate that scene as to, why did our camping roles fail? What happened? Did we get a bad wind, or did bears run through and steal all our food, or whatever? It gives a chance for some role playing tied into the mechanics of going from point A to point B.
Yep. If we're talking about Perilous Journey, I have to then talk about Hydro Hackers, because the Boost Some Water move is actually based on Perilous Journey. It is a skill prep montage. Its purpose is a move when the group needs to get a few units of water. Not like enough to keep your neighborhood going, but like maybe you needed to cut a side deal and you need like 4 or 5 units of water to make a deal with, a gang or something. Then you would use Boost Some Water. Very much structured like Perilous Journey. There's 3 individuals, like somebody who like I forget what it is, somebody who cases the place, somebody who does the job, and somebody who's lookout. And they have fancier names than that. When I wrote it, I was feeling pretty froggy. But that's essentially what it is. And each person makes a roll, and then based on the outcome of those rolls, the GM kind of like helps determine how much water you boost. So it works very similar to Perilous Journey. And again, I can, without a doubt tell you it is 100% inspired by Perilous Journey. Jerry, finish this out. One more.
All right. And the one that kind of got me started with a lot of these things was the Savage Worlds in Lankamar, the source book. There's a heist mechanic. That's another skill prep type. kind of combines a few of the ones above. The purpose is to prepare for a heist or a job. And the way it works in mechanic is each player narrates one brief action or encounter, and then makes a dice roll based on that skill to generate bennies that will be used during the heist that you can use as flashback mechanics or re-rolls or something else, where we happen to know this guard is viable or whatever. But it doesn't just show up the players get to do this, but how they do it starts out with a montage. And it doesn't just give them some mechanical advantage, but also eliminates the 4.5 hours of players arguing over how to plan the heist itself. So move things along.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's an excellent list of examples. Obviously, we got way more than we originally thought, and we left out a bunch because, we don't have room to do all of them, obviously. Avi mentioned the love letters from Apocalypse World. So there's probably a dozen more that we could have thrown on the list if we had sat down and really done it. But now that we've seen some of the games that use them, we can take the basic mechanism apart and see how it works. What do you think, Phil?
Yeah, I love this part, right? So let's talk about the montage, how it actually works in game, right? For our discussion, we're just going to focus on the skill prep montage. The structure is not very different for other ones, but I think this one is really easy to kind of latch onto. So the structure of the skill prep montage goes like this. First, something in the narrative has to happen where there becomes a purpose for the montage. We'll talk a little bit about that later in the a little bit later in another segment. But something has to come up where there's a purpose for the montage. Depending on your game, so like if you're playing like Damn the Man, the procedure of the game actually tells you when to have the montage. If you're running something like Fate, the GM has to kind of know when something is not a couple skill checks and would be better packaged into a challenge, right? So there's a little bit of your game will determine this. Once you know that you're going to have a montage, right, then you line up the skills required. Now, depending again on your game, the GM may declare what skills are needed, like, hey, I need you to make this skill check, this skill check, this skill check. Or the GM may just declare, this is the objective. What are you contributing to this check?
Yep.
Right? And then like people might go, I could totally hack the locks on that. And somebody could be like, yeah, and I could like use, my thievery to hotwire a car. Right. And like people can just contribute the skills. So it can go either way. Then a decision has got to be made on who's going to make each check. Right. Sometimes in this step, sorry, Jerry, I'm just blowing through your lines really quick.
Okay.
Sometimes in this step, the players
goes all the way through. Yep.
Yeah. Sometimes players will just describe the actions for the montage. I like that actually. So I like once we kind of get the mechanics in place, then I want to kind of hear what it looks like.
Yep.
I know that sounds weird, hear what it looks like, but I think that phrase totally works for RPGs.
It does.
I want to hear what it looks like. Then you're going to make checks. Then outcomes are determined, right? The GM then kind of takes that collection of outcomes and figures out the overall outcome for the montage. Then often the GM will kind of narrate a little bit about the overall outcome, and then we drop out of montage and resume play. A lot of times, depending on what we're doing, when that montage ends, we might also cut scene, right? Like if we're doing a whole bunch of prep for the heist, when we're done with the montage, like it might be a good place to just kind of cut scene, take a break, because when we come back, we're jumping right into this heist.
There you go.
All right.
So with an understanding of how they're used, Jerry, what do montages? Wow.
Misdirected Mark word scramble.
Misdirected Mark word scramble. What do montages do for us in our game?
All right. They're going to create a number of different play experiences. First of all, the montage is going to be used to show when a lot of work is going into something without the need to play out all the work that's being done. You accomplish something without having to show every little minutiae detail, which will slow the game to a crawl. It's basically a shortcut to keep the game focused on the more interesting action, like pulling off the heist, rather than all the work that goes into leading up to it. And in play, this is a tool the GM can use to transition from planning to execution.
Yes. Sorry, I was answering the chat room. So one of the experiences that the montage creates is it is both movie and genre emulation, right? So the montage, when we play it out at the table, makes it feel like our game is a movie, which is actually a thing I love, right? Like, I don't know if all gamers like to think about that, but like, I love thinking about my games and even my GMing style. And I think you guys have played with me. I'm sure you've heard this before. I will like talk about camera angles, right? Like I will talk about like camera, like, you know, as you guys are like, I remember like we did the finale for Tales from the Loop, and like as the kids are walking across the field, the camera's going up, you know, giving us an overhead shot of the kids walking off into the distance. Like, I think about my GMing and my narration like a movie. So I love when things enforce that, right? So the montage definitely does that. And then it's also genre enforcing. If you are in a genre where montages are frequent, right? Like heists.
Yeah.
Right? Heists, montages are in almost every heist. Yep. And so when you do one, when you're playing a heist, like that feels really genre enforcing. Like I feel like I'm in a heist.
Yeah. And that's going to end up giving you kind of what you want to feel, because it does a good job of keeping the players engaged. If we're going to play out a montage in real time, the problem that each player taking a scene to do their prep work, the progress of the game is going to slow down. There's going to be some downtime for players not engaged in the prep scene at all. But by using a montage, all the players get involved in the action, and then the play moves more rapidly to the next scene while involving everybody at the same time.
Yep.
Absolutely. Right. Like it just packs in what could be pretty tedious into a nice bundle and gets us. And then, you know, as we're fond of saying, getting to the monkey, right? Like if we're talking about a heist, like we really want the bulk of our game to be the heist. So let's have this montage of prep so that we can actually start the heist.
Yeah.
Very good. All right, that is an overview of montages. When we get back in the next segment, we'll get back like as if we're going anywhere, although I might go get some more water. In the next segment, we're going to talk more about how to get more out of montages in play. But first, we need to get take a break, check in with the chat room, and Phil definitely needs more water.
And my drink also. So.
And before we do that, Bob's going to tell us about another show on the network. I will be. Let's see. Jerry's going. Jerry goes. I'll stay for a second.
No, you guys can go. I got this.
All right, Bob's gonna anchor.
Yeah,
take it away, Bob.
I would like to tell you about a little show called the Gnomecast. Okay, the Gnomecast is a podcast in which several gnomes from Gnome Stew get together to talk about gaming topics and themselves in an effort to entertain you and avoid being thrown in the stew. They have oftentimes been getting some guests to come on the show as well. So it's a very entertaining little podcast with some good information, and we need more exposure for the gnomes. The gnomes need to be exposed. Wait, that didn't come out right. You know what I mean. We'll just leave it at that. So, and Senda likes to go long during the Gnomecast. She learned that from Phil.
Only during the Gnomecast?
What's that?
Only during the Gnomecast?
Yes, we were doing the Gnomecast.
I said only during the Gnomecast.
Well, I don't know. All right, so Avi asked, does the Sprawl use montages when scoping the job, or was that just their GM? And now I'm trying to think back on playing the Sprawl. Does the Sprawl use montages, or did we just did? What do you think, Phil?
I'm trying to think if the Sprawl has a flashback mechanism, which is a little different from montages, although that could be a future garage. Flashback might be a really fun one. A really fun one to talk about.
That is definitely a possibility. You know, I'm gonna pin that. Ding.
Ding, pin that, my friend. I am parched tonight. I don't know if the chicken nuggets and tater tots or whatever just...
Did you salt the taters?
I mean, a little.
I was going to say maybe the salt created a...
My problem is I realized after I started that I have a fizzy drink here, and that's not what I'm supposed to drink when I want to do a podcast.
So, so you're like a Senda. Like...
So I switched off fizzy drink.
So Schmitty is saying the gear tokens kind of lean into montage territory?
I'm actually going to argue that the gear tokens are not a montage. The gear tokens, right? The gear tokens are actually a flashback mechanic.
That is true.
Right? So So the flashback, we can think of flashbacks. We take a quick diversion because we are now going to totally do a future show on flashbacks. If we look at Blades in the Dark, right? Flashbacks are a thing that you pay, if I remember correctly, right? You pay stress for, right? The more improbable the flashback,
Yes.
the more stress you pay. In the Sprawl, your gear tokens and intel tokens are a type of flashback mechanic where you get to spend them, you earn them during the prep phase. Mm-hmm. And there is a prep phase of a mission in the Sprawl. You earn them during the prep phase. You use, and they're nondescript, right? They just say gear and they say intel. Yep. And then you use them in the game and define them in the scene based on the current scene where you're like, oh yes, well, we totally got armor piercing rounds when we bought those explosives. And that actually runs pretty close to another type of flashback mechanic, which is the preparation check in Night's Black Agents.
Yeah.
Which also does something very similar.
Yeah. So
we're totally now doing flashback.
Yeah. So on the surface, I think the Sprawl doesn't actually have a montage for the prep, but you could do montages in the prep very easily.
100%, right? You could totally. In fact, I sometimes will do them. So here's the thing. So sometimes I don't like initiate a montage like as a single skill check, but I will do a thing where I'll be like, okay, like especially with the Sprawl, like, okay, we're getting ready to do this, this job. Bob, what are you doing? Right? Mm-hmm. You would tell me, I'm like, cool, make this move. Jerry, what are you doing? Hitting your information network? Cool, make this move. And then like go around the table. And then I would stop. And as the GM, I'd be like, okay, so we see Bob cutting a deal with the arms dealer and cut over and we see, Jerry talking to his contacts and we see, Chris setting up, his hack and checking his gear and and then kind of like, all right, cool. Are we ready to move into the action phase?
Yeah.
So, and I've totally done it. And Avi said the same thing in the chat room. I don't know of too many published adventures that have built-in montages, but I use it as a narrative structure all the time because, again, I'm prone to thinking of my games like movies.
Yeah.
And montages are like that perfect thing where, hey, none of this is really terribly exciting. It's yet still useful, and I want to get through it very quickly.
Yeah, super useful tool.
Yeah, super useful, not always super fun.
Yeah.
and that's what I think is the real power of the montage is that as a mechanic, it takes something that is super useful because all those checks and everything are helpful for the players because no player wants to just jump into a heist with no flashback mechanics or no prep.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. That's a holdup. That's not a heist. That's like a stick up job. And those often go by the way of bloodbath.
Yeah.
So no one wants to do that, but also sitting around making prep checks and checking gear or buying a thing isn't always the most exciting use of a couple hours.
Yeah.
Right.
So it is neat when you can just pack it into this, this construct that's cool, we're going to do all these things, but then we're going to get to the exciting part, which is let's do a heist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Blake Ryan gave another example of a way you could use a montage. You can start in media res and then use a montage later to let the people know how you got to
absolutely.
the point where you jumped in.
Aussies are representing tonight. We got Avi and Blake in the chat room, coming in strong tonight.
Well, I'm sure they're probably trying to take a break from the heat because I'm sure it's not very cool out there.
Isn't it winter? Isn't it winter?
No,
there?
It's winter.
Oh, I flipped the cotton or the.
You gotta, yeah. It's hot here. Yeah.
I swear, somebody on Twitter was just talking about somebody who was like, "Oh, it's even hotter over here," and I thought it was in that area. But
about a week ago, it was really hot in England, I believe, hotter than it was here.
That could be Andrew.
The problem
DC.
is that, or it could have been it's a place where they don't have AC all the time.
Yeah, there you go.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Well, anyhow, back to the thing. Let's return to the topic and say, hey, Phil, how do we make the most out of montages in our games?
Sure thing. right, we're going to talk about leveraging these mechanics in play. So putting aside games that have narrative montages like Love and Justice and Damn the Man, no offense to them, but those are fixed, right? The procedures of the game fix when they're going to be used and exactly how they're going to be used. So we just set those aside.
Mm-hmm. And training montages are going to fall in the same boat. They often have a spot in the game where it's appropriate to have training, and you want to talk about how they got there without taking too much time.
Yeah, exactly. So let's drill in. Let's focus on skill prep, because that kind of montage can be employed at different times during a game. In many cases, the game will give you some indication of when it should be engaged. Like most games will tell you if they have a montage mechanic, they'll kind of tell you when to kick it into play. But a good hint is if the players are all preparing for something, and even more so if they're all telling you they're doing different things, right? If all of a sudden you have a group of players sitting around a table and they're like, oh, I could look this up. And somebody's like, oh, I'll check with my contacts and I'll do this. Like, you're probably on the verge of a montage.
Mm-hmm.
So the players will discuss what they should do, which typically has players coming up with things that their characters need to do, right? So you've had some sort of planning discussion, and whether this is an investigation or whether this is a heist, you've had some sort of like planning discussion where everybody gets together and they're like, this is the problem. How do we tackle this? And then all of a sudden, like, everybody starts coming up with ideas, and typically they're ideas that kind of run off in different directions because each player's got a specialty, right? Your hacker is going to be like, I'm going to do a deep dive in the internet. And your investigator is like, I'm going to go look over the case evidence. And your people person is like, I'm going to go talk to some people. And now you can see, like, I got a whole bunch of these disparate activities that are all driving us towards a single goal. Mm-hmm. This is a good place to drop in our montage.
Yep. So let's talk about a couple other tips to get the most out of your skill and prep montages.
Yeah. First things first, keep the narration light. It's a montage. If you look at movies, like, they're quick cuts, right? Like, they're just little quick vignettes of what each character is doing, just to make a point of what they're doing. So when you do this, keep your narration light and fast. You want to just kind of hit on each character, what they're doing, really quick, and then move to the next character. Mm-hmm. Like 1 or 2 sentences, and then move on.
Yep. You want to encourage the players to find ways to use their best skills in the montage.
I mean, yeah, you don't want to. Yeah. Don't take your like -1 skill. Use your +4 skill for this.
Sometimes players are going to find ways to use their least used skills just to use them.
I mean, if they want to, right? Yeah. But you should always a montage should always. I always think montages are kind of like the rogues phase.
Yep. I was just thinking the same thing.
They should be showing off the coolness of your characters, right? So. I like them to kind of like lead with your best skills for that. Okay, have everyone, like, once you've set out who's going to do what, have everyone roll their results and then just go around the table and collect all the results.
Yep. And don't overuse the montage. 1 to 2 sessions, 1 to 2 montages per session is about right. If the players start trying to drop into a montage every 15 minutes, it's being used. It might be overused.
Yeah, I mean, if you think of like a heist movie, like, there's rarely more than 1 to 2 montages.
Now, I would argue, argue that like one here and there, like if you're having a con session of Action Movie World and you want to montage the hell out of it.
Yeah, I mean,
that's genre appropriate for Action Movie World.
It's a little zany, but yeah, I mean, it could definitely be done. But like in a regular game, like 1 to 2, I think is a pretty good number. For 2 would even be kind of remarkable in a 4-hour session. 1, I mean, crazy, more bonkers things have happened.
Yeah.
All right,
I've had player groups that just because they enjoy it, try to turn every encounter into a heist if they can, which is fine. They enjoy it, I enjoy it, but with those, you might have more than 1 montage per session. So I could see it happening.
Yeah. The next one is don't mix montages with other scenes. Like, don't do a montage in the middle of a combat scene. Like, combat scene's a combat scene. Like, if the time in a montage is fluid, right? What we know in a montage is like everybody's doing their thing, and we don't really care how long each person's piece took, right? Like everybody did their thing, and when the montage is over, everybody is time synced to that point. But if you mix it or try to drop a montage into a combat scene has a rigid time structure, right? In most cases. And so you get into this like really messy thing where you have this like fluid montage coming up against this like more rigid time scale. It's not going to work. You could have a montage leading to a combat scene. You might even have a montage going out of a combat scene, like, hey, you guys got your ass kicked. Let's do a montage of how you guys run away. Right? Like that would be fine. Or let's do a skill check to run, like to get out of the layer before it collapses in on you. That's fine. But just like, don't mix, like don't put one in the other.
Right.
Don't put your American cheese in your peanut butter. See, thank you. Okay, Jer.
And lastly, if a character has no useful skills for a montage, let them narrate 1 or 2 sentences of what they're doing instead, possibly related to one of their hooks or character backgrounds. So everybody else is busy prepping, and meanwhile, the characters in the background writing their secret love letter to Baron Von Badass that nobody else knows about. Or everybody else is building the new gadget, and they're going to spend time fixing that new fresher attachment in the whatever. But just 1 or 2 sentences describing something else, so they get to do something during the montage. And that's also very movie-like. If you think about a lot of montages in movies, you sometimes have the odd man out who's doing something else that they just stick in there, but it's brief and 1 or 2 sentences, and that's it. Go ahead, Bill.
I just want to build on that. That's a really good point. So if somebody doesn't have a useful skill, if the game has an assist mechanic, then buddy them up with another character, right? Because if they're like, oh, well, I don't have auto mechanic, but I can assist on that. Then those 2 people are in the scene working together. So that's going to depend on your game, right? That's going to depend on if your game has an assist mechanic, and if you have an assist, like a skill that's worthy to assist, that kind of thing.
Cool. All right, some good tips there. Jerry, are we going to run into any problems or challenges with montages?
Of course we will, as always. That's how games work. But for the most part, they're pretty reliable mechanics. There are a few challenges and issues when using them. Here's a couple things you want to look out for. Bill?
Yeah, when a montage doesn't include a significant part of the group, that's a problem. If 1 or 2 people, like Jerry said, like if 1 or 2 people out of like a group of 5 or whatever can't participate in the montage and you can't even figure out how to work them in, then maybe don't do a montage. Maybe you just need to do a couple skill checks. A montage is really supposed to be an ensemble activity.
Number 2, I would say set the duration for the montage, and just say that everybody's busy till it's done. The total montage is going to take X amount of time, and everybody does their work at X amount of time, regardless of how long it would actually take. And be careful to avoid people trying to double dip, saying their work takes less time and they want to go off and do something else. The idea is that for the montage time, everybody's doing this one set of tasks, and it all takes the same amount of time, regardless of how much time it would actually take.
Yeah, that's like don't overthink the montage, or don't let players overthink the montage. The last one, which we talked about before, right, is overusing montages. We mentioned it above. A montage is a trope. You don't want to overuse it. It seems to be good around 1 to 2 in a session. Your mileage may vary. I don't know. I kind of, I that's where I kind of fall 1 to 2 on a game. Jerry, you got one more. I see you quickly trying to get some notes in there.
Yep, I got it in there, which is basically, and this is common, is be careful of the comedic montage. I mean, montages are often used in a lot of movies and scenes as kind of a comedy outtake. The shopping montage that ends up being like Mannequin or something along that line. Those can be great, and if the game and the players are all having a good time with it, keep it to tone and go for it. But if it's out of place, if you're doing a Call of Cthulhu game or a really serious hard line, something like the Sprawl or what I would imagine Forbidden Lands is like, try to avoid the comedic montage. Yeah, it's very easy for players to fall into that, and I've had montages where the game is going serious, and all of a sudden somebody decides to do a goofy trying on hats montage, and it throws the whole tone off. So let's be aware of that.
Or the Scooby-Doo running around looking for the monster montage.
Yes, knock over the postcard stand. Exactly.
Yeah.
If by the way you're playing Toon and you want to run across a hallway, open one door, and have the monster come out the other side or whatever, like again, like you said, keep it to tone.
Yeah, that
would be 100% correct.
And many games will fall in between this. There are many games where they're a very serious game most of the time, but maybe there's a background forbidden meet cute romance going on, and so the comedic montage fits that same tone. But just be aware of it and make sure that everybody understands what the tone is. Otherwise, a montage can throw the entire feel of the game off. You're trying to prepare for the big serious ending, and there's a lot of stakes, and there's a lot of things at stake, and then all of a sudden somebody decides to do, let's try on 15 different feather boas. That can throw the whole thing off, unless that fits into how they're going to sneak in. I actually love those comedic montages, as if you guys couldn't figure that out already. But I do understand that there's a time and a place for them. So, all right,
cool.
Bob?
Blake's got a really good question. Is there a presumption that doing a montage means you succeed, so people may try and use it to avoid failure?
Oh.
So, if you're sticking with the mechanics, I think so in movies, absolutely right. In movies, this is prep is always competency, right? But that doesn't always have to be true. And so, this is a case where I think that RPGs diverge from movies, is that, we have a randomizer to determine what happens. So, yeah, you could do a montage and somebody could fail something.
Mm-hmm.
So, you could totally do a montage and all of a sudden, you fail to create the explosive that's going to open the safe door. Right? Now, if you're playing Fate, you took that failure and you accepted a cost, it's going to work, but it's only going to partially get the door off. You'll have to muscle your way through it or something.
We literally had that happen in this week's game. We did our training, we did our setup montage, and when making gear, we had a tying success, which meant there was a complication that we made 2 anti-werewolf bullets, but only one of them was actually good at doing it, the other one we didn't. That's exactly what happened.
Yes.
Which, by the way, was a great call. So.
Yeah, that one worked out really well, actually. It was just, honestly, it was one of those quick moments of inspiration of arbitrating the rules in play.
And I'll also say the other thing is that, to follow up on Blake's concept, if you find players use that to avoid failure, like they do a montage specifically because they want to make sure they don't fail, that tells you something about where your players are going with the story or the adventure and how you might want to frame it. You don't want to make it automatically succeed, but it means that they're really pushing hard for that success as opposed to a complication. And just to be aware of that, whenever your players start leaning heavily into this is the only way we're going to succeed, it tells you something about the tone of the game, and you can work on that. So
it's a good point.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So before we wrap this thing up, are there any hacks or wishes that you might have for montages in games?
Yeah, if your game does not have a montage mechanic, they're pretty easy to add to your game.
Mm-hmm. You can add a narrative montage that can be added as a GM framing a single scene with a structure, and then just ask the players for input.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally works. You can do a skill prep montage by totally ripping off the 4E skill challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Just rip that off. It's so easy. Everybody picks a skill, everybody rolls, you set a threshold of how many successes to how many failures, and you can say okay, we're going to do 3 turns of rolls and you guys need 8 successes before you rack up 5 failures, something like that.
Yep.
Super easy mechanic. Go look it up. It's on the internet because the actual write-up for it in the game sucked, so the internet the internet did a lot of work to better explain that mechanic. But totally steal that for your game. I could easily use it in Forbidden Lands. I could name a dozen different games where you could just slap that mechanic in. It would totally work.
Yeah.
So do that.
Yeah. All right.
Wish list stuff. I'll just jump in really quick. I love prep skill montages. Like I would stick them in every game possible, right? That would be my wish list part, right? I would stick them in every game because I just love the idea of a group all working together to get something done. But I think what might be a fun wish list hack kind of thing is a mechanic where you narrate the montage and maybe you write it all down. Like Bob prepared the explosives, Jerry got the codes to the alarm or whatever, but you don't roll the outcome until it comes up in the game.
Yeah.
Right? So like you just don't know until that moment.
That adds a good tension element.
Yeah. Like I think, Bob, do you remember we did this once in a game? I think it was a superhero game, and I just don't remember what it was. Somebody did a skill check, and I want to say it was a corporation game, and I think it was Mike, and it was a demolition roll.
Yep.
And he rolled it, and I made him roll it under a cup.
Yep.
And I was like, because he was preparing the explosives to breach the door. And I made him roll it, but put a cup over it. And I was like, we'll take the cup away when the explosives detonate. And we'll find out how your skill roll is. This way there was like no, I failed the skill check. And kind of telegraphing setting up at the door. It was like simply like, well, we all line up at the door. I triggered the explosive, and then he lifted up the cup and was like, whew, and it worked.
Yep.
I want to say you did something very similar in our masks.
Did I?
Masks game.
That seems like, that's nonsense I like to do. Like that's not in any rules or anything, but sometimes, sometimes those are just cool tension builders. Like, have a player roll in a cup and just like roll and slam the cup on the table. And then no one knows until you reveal it. It's cool. That's Schrodinger's roll.
Yep.
What about you, Jerry? Got any wish lists on there?
Well, I've pretty much imported heist mechanics and montage mechanics into every game I run. Even if they don't have them, if the players want to do something, I like flashbacks, I like heists, I like montages. I like to get them in there. They're also a nice way to do downtime without doing downtime, because it gives the players a chance to talk about what their characters do outside of the mission itself while prepping for the mission. And I like to see them use as role-playing hooks. It's a good place for a throwback or character reinforcement. Montages are where I often see the recurring joke or recurring scene show up, like said to say, knocking over the postcard stand and then apologizing, picking it back up again. Anytime that comes up, it works out well. And if the game mood is appropriate, this is a good place for a slightly silly scene. Somebody to do something. If their character is a bit of a jokester or has that sort of personality, it's a good place to toss that in and let them do their thing, so that they get to be mildly funny without interrupting the mood of the rest of the game. This is a good place for the asides and so on. The important thing is to keep it short, keep it to 1 or 2 sentences per player, and make sure that everybody gets a chance to do their thing and see how it results. And that's pretty much our garage segment on montages.
Yeah, we hope the next time your crew needs to prep for a job that this advice will be of some assistance.
Let's check in with the chat room one more time before we head on over to the conversation corner.
By the way, that ending is actually a montage. Always has been, Cotton.
Yeah, Avi has done the thing with rolling and keeping it under a cup until the appropriate moment, which I really like that as a tool. And I'm wondering now if there might be a show about things like that. Gathering
tension builders?
The rolling under a cup, or the put the big die on the table and rotate the number
countdown.
the countdown. Yeah. Yes, people use clocks all the time, but the actual physical use of the big die as an extra,
So the Jenga tower, the big die, the covered die roll. I don't know if we can get a whole episode, but if you want to put it on the list as tension builder, like tension builders, and then put in parentheses a couple of the items. There's a good chance we might it might trigger something for a future show. But I get what you're going at, because I've totally done it, right? Countdown timers and things like that as ways to build tension.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought that I had. So,
it is an interesting thought.
Phil, did you at one point have a thought of using some kind of a tube of water in H2O as a tension builder? Something with physical water?
I didn't. But the thing I will tell you is that as a genre thing, people who play Hydra hackers during the course of the game will get very thirsty. Like the constant talking about water.
Yep.
Like every time you take a break, people will be like, "Oh man, I'm gonna go fill up my water bottle." So
psychosomatic.
I didn't have a tube of water. I had man, we had a lot of different mechanics when I was working on the big hydro hack thing that had like things in bags and glass tokens on or cards in a tableau. Like there were a lot of different things before I got to what I think the final solution is like a series of rolls. Like it's a series of moves.
Yeah.
There is like a whole card game in there though that we can make one day out of the other pieces that we have.
I remember that one.
All right. Excuse me. A little froggy today. It's that reflux. Ah.
Yeah.
All right. So let's do the thing where we'll bounce on over to the conversation corner here.
Yep.
All right. So I eventually jumped on board. Everything with me is there's timing and planning involved. If somebody's like, "Oh my God, you have to watch this show on Netflix," I can't just drop everything I'm doing and be like, "Okay, I'm gonna watch." That's why it took me forever to get to She-Ra.
Yeah.
And I had to give Senda that warning. The more you harp on something, the more childlike and angry I get, and I will dig in my heels and go, "Nope, I'm not gonna do it just to spite you now."
Yep.
So if you really want me to do something, mention it, get the bug in my ear, and then let it go. And eventually I'll get to it.
Yep.
So eventually I got to Master of the Universe. And I did not realize that it was only 5 episodes. I'm like, do. I'm like, episode 5, all right. Oh shit, it's over.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, cliffhanger ending. Okay then. Well, to all of the whiny people that cried about it, grow up, get over yourselves. It's a perfectly good cartoon that draws on some of the childhood things that some people grew up with. It's an interesting story. It's a well-written show. It may not be what you wanted or expected, but it's still a well put together show that tells an interesting story with interesting characters. And it goes some places that you don't expect. And there's a couple of surprises.
Yeah. There's some very good recharacterizations also.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, good stuff. I enjoyed it. Of course, working my way through Discovery, deep into season 2 now, and enjoying Phil's responses. He hits me up on Slack. He's like, "Did that just happen? No way. They just went there." You know, he's throwing down comments and I'm like, "Yeah, all right." It just keeps getting better and better. So good stuff. Because I burned through obviously Masters of the Universe and the other short form stuff that I was watching, my new current short form lunch program is The Dragon Prince, which is another one that people touted very highly when it first came out. And I didn't really know very much about it, never really looked into it, had no idea what I was up against. Sat down to watch the first episode and went, "Oh, interesting. Very interesting." Did not expect what I was getting and very pleasantly surprised. I really, really, really dig the design of the elves for this show. Like this is like a completely different take on elves, in my opinion, from what you normally get when you get standard elves from everywhere else. So yeah, I'm very much looking forward to seeing where that's going to go. Entertaining stuff. excuse me. Jerry and I continue to beat the hell out of Valheim. Because of the nature of the game, it's the overarching metagame, for lack of a better word, is that you go into Valheim and it's like you have to prep yourself to take on the big bads. And when you defeat the boss monster, you move on to the next one. And there's only 5 boss monsters, and then the game is over, quote unquote, because they don't have the content yet. But we've been using everything else about the game to keep the game going, because Jerry and I very much enjoy the building and the crafting and the exploration part of it. So because of that, I started, knowing that we're one boss monster away from being done, I started going into the mod category, the mod catalog, looking for mods to enhance the things about the game that Jerry and I really enjoy. So I started fiddling with some of the building mods and things that enhance crafting and let you craft different things, and the food mods and stuff like that. So we just loaded up a bunch of those the other night, and it took everything to another level. Visually, we can make cooler looking stuff and different things like that. So that's going to sustain us for quite a bit before we get to the next boss monster and beyond. Before they put out new content that will take us to another stage. And then, of course, moving prep. I mentioned it at the top of the show. Things are starting to ramp up. A lot of stuff is going to be going on. So it's going to be wild, wacky fun, as some people say. It's going to be an interesting month of August. Why I always got to have interesting months in August, I don't know. Someday, maybe in an after show somewhere, I'll tell you about August 1996. But yeah, August seems to be one of those months that a lot of the interesting stuff happens, and it's always hot. It doesn't need to be so hot.
Sadly, that's what August is all about.
Yeah, that's what August is all about, at least around here.
Yes.
All right, Jerry, what about you?
Well, for my birthday, my wife got me some off-brand Lego building sets that I've been having fun building and assembling. There's two companies called Nutme and My Build that make minifigure scale little battle mech things. I don't know if you guys can. They're about they're this size, and they hold an actual person in them. And I've actually used them in some of the games I have. They've got more of them, and they're kind of themed, and they're a lot of fun. But this year they put out a couple sets that had support vehicles and all that. So I've just been digging back into that. And I really haven't built a big Lego set in a while, so I've been puttering around with these and doing modifications. And that really gave me something to kind of unwind with at the end of the night. Catching up with Voyager again, which has been a lot of fun. Looking forward to the finale. Bad Batch just continues to be an amazing Star Wars series, and it is much like The Mandalorian is Star Wars, the role-playing game on screen. I mean, if you don't know what the Bad Batch is about by now, it's 5.5 specialists. You've got the leader/tracker hand-to-hand guy. You've got the super tech genius. You have the cyborg hacker. You have the big, not too bright, super strong gunner. And then you've got the young female clone who has got some other abilities, and tack onto that their good friend and contact, their sympathetic NPC, Sid, who is a rather interesting take on the Trandoshids. If you're familiar with Star Wars, you know Bosk. This is one of Bosk's race, the big lizard, and it's voiced by Rhea Perlman, and it's absolutely amazing, and she's a great character. And so they get missions, they go out on missions, they do their missions, and each mission adds a little bit more to the big overarching story that they're involved in. And this week ended on a cliffhanger, which is a lot of fun. So it's been a lot of
Yep.
If you enjoyed the Clone Wars, if you enjoyed Rebels, if you like Star Wars in general, the Bad Batch is a lot of fun. Also watched this week's episode of Rick and Morty, and they continue to get. This was less weird than the last couple. This was about basically Voltron, Rick and Morty's version of Voltron, and it's a lot of fun and kind of sets the stage for some other weirdness to go. But it's been a lot of fun. This was probably the most normal of all the Rick and Morty episodes this season.
That says a lot.
It's been, and then they also dropped another Rick and Morty short. They did those little, like the samurai one they did last year, and that came out this week also. It's a lot of fun. And lastly, Valheim. Valheim's been a lot of fun. Part of what happens in Valheim is that early on in the game, you're just scrambling to build shelters however you can with whatever resources you've got. And as you go into new biomes, you get access to more stuff. And so we'll go back to old shelters that we built. And wow, we did a really bad job on this. And this was just slapped together. And one of the things Bob and I do as we're exploring is we'll go back and rebuild them. Well, we decided that we had some downtime. And before Bob downloaded all the new advances, we went back to one of our two main bases. And I jokingly said, Swamp Castle has kind of been where our anchor has been, but it's kind of shoddy. There's a lot of stuff we should do. I'm thinking I might want to go back and rebuild the one corner tower that we use as our sleeping quarters and make it a little bit nicer. And Bob's like, we can also even out the walls so it's actually square instead of just kind of being haphazard. And that'd be kind of nice. And literally 8 hours later, we almost demolished the place and rebuilt it from the ground up. We've done this several times now.
It looks completely different.
It's completely different. Poor Chris is going to come back on and not know where we put anything. It'll be easier now because we put up signs. But it's been fun because we come up with an idea. One of the three of us will come up with an idea, and then we start doing it. Hey, it'd be nice to build a dock. And the initial concept is we'll put down some planks here on the water. And 4 days later, there's a 6-story stone tower with a completely enclosed boathouse and a covered trail leading into the forest and a foundry and a smeltery and everything. And I'm a completionist, and Bob is all about symmetry. So some things will happen, like with our plains base. I built the first big base we built in what is now the most dangerous biome. We built just kind of a big blocky building, and I wanted to experiment with stairs, so I built a corner tower on one side, and it worked out very well. But now, of course, that meant that Bob had to put 3 more towers on, so it was all symmetrical, and that led to 2 days of us just having a good time building stuff. So this is part of the fun of why we keep going back to Valheim, is because it's a very community-oriented game. One person does something that leads to everybody else getting involved in some neat projects. Unfortunately, we can't montage that.
Yeah.
But we do have a good time. And every time Bob finds a new mod, it suddenly adds, I'm not kidding, 5 or 6 days worth of play into the game, because we just don't go back and start, this thing we always wanted to try, now we can do at this oddball situation way out in the middle of the wilderness. We have fun. So, Bill, what about you?
Watching more Discovery. Finished season 1, started season 2. I kind of like how season 1 is its own story and then ends. It had some good twists. It definitely had a thing I did not see coming in the end, and I was like, oh man. So that was really good. I just like Discovery. Like the man babies who whine about Discovery on the in the dark basements of Star Trek fandom can just bite it. Discovery's fantastic. It's everything. I actually believe it is. It's what Roddenberry would have wanted. It is progressive. It is good. The stories are good. The sci-fi is good. All of those things. Again, we're wrapping up Voyager, which is interesting for me because for 22 weeks I've been prepping show lists and writing up summaries and all that stuff. And much like the ending of TNG, all good things, right, have to come to an end. So I get a chunk of my Sunday back and my evenings back. Although I'm going to dedicate some of that evening time to watching She-Ra, as I promised Senda that I would watch She-Ra, which is not a huge promise. It's not like I'm like, oh boy, I got to watch She-Ra. Like,
it's not a heavy lift. You'll enjoy it.
Yeah,
I'm totally excited to watch She-Ra. But I couldn't get into another show while we were finishing up Voyager. I downloaded and got my copy of Orbital Blues. Started reading that. That's looking pretty cool. That looks like a pretty nice light game. It's got a really interesting artistic direction to it. The book itself, I can't wait to actually get a physical copy. God, I hope I back the physical copy because the PDF just looks fantastic. I'm really curious to see it in full glossy. I started reading, again, you get Senda to cheer in the chat room, started reading one of Senda's new favorite books, Gideon the Ninth. That's good so far. I just started it. I've been having a lot of trouble reading post-pandemic and post-alpha pandemic, like not before, like pre-delta. So I'm trying to get back into reading on a regular basis. So Senda bought me Gideon the Ninth while I was in Denver, and I've started. I cracked the cover and started reading it. We played iHunt. We talked about that already. Spun up a new Minecraft world. It's probably the first time I played Minecraft since before I moved. But I spun up the last mod pack, the one that we've never used, the 1.16 mod pack, and noticed that we had a different world renderer in it. So instead of doing the classic biomes of plenty, which we've played a whole bunch of biomes of plenty before. There's another world renderer in there, like called Tetraforge, or I forget what its exact. Terraforge, I think is what it's called. I can't remember. But anyway, man, did it make some seriously interesting ass terrain. Like Andy spun up a instance, a standalone instance as well. And just like the terrain came out really different. Like it's a really different look from the traditional biomes of plenty. So I'm going to play that for a while. I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but you guys are off doing your thing. So if other people want to, get a server back, it's fine. If not, I'm just going to kind of crank through that mod pack. There's a whole bunch of mechanism in it that's beyond even the stuff that we've done, like I did before. So I wouldn't mind taking mechanism to whatever ridiculous end it goes to. It has some sort of cosmic cosmic soul crushing reactor or something. It's whatever it is, it's absolutely bonkers. Like it produces antimatter explosions and things like that. It's got some really cool, I've seen a mod preview on it, so cool. I'll probably do that for a while. But I had been so busy with the move and everything else, like I hadn't played Minecraft in like 2.5 months or something. I just sat down the other night, fired up an instance. I didn't even build a house or anything yet. I just kept stuffing things in a hut in a village as I was looking for a house. And then I found some pretty cool structures that I think I'm gonna rehab, including like a rundown castle. I got a new couch coming Friday. The couch I bought on Memorial Day is finally here. It's getting delivered sometime on Fridays. I'm pretty psyched about that. I can't wait to move. I can't wait to get rid of camping chairs. The camping chairs that currently occupy my living room. I'm super psyched about that. So I'm looking forward to getting rid of those and actually having like a couch that also does the thing where it's my last big piece of furniture, so I can then start figuring out what I want to hang on walls, because I'll kind of know what walls I have free and what like spaces I have. So I want to do some decorating and stuff, because I have some decorations. I need some things I have that can go right up, some things I have that need frames, and then there's just like a whole bunch of shit I want to buy, which will be a slower process, but I like need to start decorating. That's kind of where I am now, is like I have furniture, I have function, but I don't exactly have aesthetics yet. So and there's a few pieces of furniture. I was hunting around for a chair for my corner of my bedroom today, but it was too big and whatever. Anyway, and then other than that, like I'm kind of in this weird drift right now. It's way more than I'm going to unpack here on the show, and it's just in time for therapy. But like I had a whole bunch of things I was kind of gearing up for this year, like big life-changing things and big projects and stuff like that, and they're all done. Like, it's August and everything's done, and I don't know what to do next, right? Like, I'm kind of in flux with the games that we're playing. I'm unsure what I want to do on my weeknights, which is why I haven't committed to a Thursday game. I don't know. I mean, there's things I've been doing forever just because, like, that's how my old life worked. Like, I run games on Sunday nights, but like, do I have to run games on Sunday nights? I don't. Like, do whatever I want now. Like, I don't think I know yet. So I'm kind of glad I have therapy coming up because I don't really know what to do. And part of it is like taking stock of like, do the things I'm currently doing or obligated to doing bring me joy? Like,
it's fair.
And if they don't, why am I doing it?
Yeah.
So I don't know. Like I need to kind of take stock. I need some direction. Like, I did a lot of prep work to get to here and didn't do anything to figure out what to do once I got here. So I'm still kind of working through. I'm definitely working through it. So I'm taking that right to therapy. Take that right to therapy tomorrow afternoon. It won't solve it all in one therapy session, but it'll be a good topic. It'll be a good topic for discussion.
Yep.
Anyway, that's me.
All right. Well, that will bring us around to the Patreon shout-outs as we start to close down this bugger. Thank you so much to the Old School DM, who was also a contest winner. Thanks to our very own Sean Merwin, Troy Sandlin, Chris Constantine, Cindy Moore, Eric Simon, Mirko Frolik, Andrew Demps, Brandon Barnes, and Brantley Harris. And thanks to everybody for listening tonight.
If you are free on Tuesday evenings at 8 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Queen's Time, come join us live on Twitch, where you can chat with other listeners in the ever-awesome chat room for life and ask us the occasional question.
And if you cannot make it to a live show, check out our podcast each week wherever you get your podcasts. You can listen to some of the other shows in the Misdirected Mark Network, such as They're a Super Geek, Mastering Dungeons, Bone Storm Obsidian, The FM Gamers, Panis Talking Games, The Gnome Cast, John Who Hustle, The Lounge, Bonus Experience, and back episodes of She's a Super Geek. You can and should also check out our sibling podcasts, Tabletop Bellhop, The Knights of the Night, and the always amazing Gaming MBS.
Before you tackle that big job, as you're in the middle of doing your montage, set aside somebody to type us out a quick letter and leave us some feedback. You can reach us directly via email, mmp@misdirectedmark.com. Hit us up on Twitter. The show and the network is at Misdirected Mark. He's Robert M. Everson. He's GM Gerrymander, and I am DNA Phil.
If you like what we do here and on the other shows in the Misdirected Mark Network, you can support our Patreon campaigns. MMP, Mastering Dungeons, and Pandas Talking Games are at patreon.com/MMP. Zhanghu Hustle is at patreon.com/Zhanghu Hustle, and Bonus Experience is at patreon.com/Bonus Experience. Patrons of MMP, Mastering Dungeons, and Pandas Talking Games get access to the after show, pre-production show notes, musical parodies, the Bamboo Lounge, and other special releases.
This has been a Misdirected Mark production, the media arm of Encoded Designs. Mic drop.
We out.